Hello, everyone. This is Mikoy, and welcome back to another episode of the Tourist Plaza Classic 3 podcast. Today, we're going to review round 2 and discuss round 3, since round 3 has just released maybe a couple of hours ago by the time I'm recording, so I'm at least consistent by that standard. No matches have been played yet, which is good. But here, I'm going to review all the matches that have happened, at least the ones that have been played, because, surprise, some people haven't played yet, and some of them are determined by coin flip, as per usual. Please play all your matches. So, round 2, as I've said before, it's Godly Gift Shared Power, which is quite a step up from OU Megas from last round. So, it's again best of 3, as per usual. So, it's an OM Mashups Fest. And if you haven't checked out the last video, I highly suggest watching the first video. Um, it's on the channel and also on the thread, so it's easy access. So, let's check out some matches, shall we? First off, first match that had happened. Again, I'm going by chronological order because um, yeah, I at least need to be consistent with that. First match that happened, we have EU who played against Aethernum. Uh, this match was kind of well expected of both teams and their success. I've gotten to see now had a chance to see how EU plays, and he's pretty good, you know. Oh, at least he knows what he is doing. Also, be prepared to see this team a lot. Grimsnarl, Regieleki, Xerneas, Tapulele, Kartana, and Crawdon. This team has been proven to be absolutely broken in terms of, or maybe it's just because it's a sample. I don't know, but the rest has instead build while others use samples. So the first match that happened, not really much to say here. I do have some notes, and the first note. What is I want to check out how I just want to tell you guys how broken Beast Boost is. Why hasn't that ability been banned? Um, because definitely Tapu Lele, Cortana, and most of all Xerneas have easily shredded through this meta with Beast Boost having an addition. So please instruct, since you're the tier leader, I ask you to ban Beast Boost. um, but the real kicker of this first game was Crawdon moxieing 8th team to death. It was just absolutely broken with adaptability and Beast Boost. Just overpowered 8th team there in game 1. Game 2 really wasn't the best matchup for 8th. He changed up his team a bit, and it looks like this against, again, Kartana, who's been a threat. Regieleki, Xerneas, Regieleki, of course, being Regieleki, bye-bye Corviknight, and Xerneas carrying Thunderbolt, which is good coverage for basically Corviknight, and then Moon blasting everything else. It was just a bad matchup all around, and 8th ended up getting 6-0'd because of said Xerneas. So, unfortunately, 8th is out of this tournament, but hey, it's because of Xerneas that 8th is dead. That's bad. Next matchup that had happened was Stuffed Ravioli defeating Mercupti, again in 2. Uh, this one, not really much again to say. I haven't been checking out all matches, but I have watched all of them prior to this and have taken notes of it. So the first game had Eternatus with the half sweep, which was pretty awesome, and Regieleki absolutely proved instrumental in this matchup, letting Xerneas take the sweep and get the win for Stuffed Ravioli in game 1. Game 2, pretty weird team by Mercupti. I mean, check this out, shall we? Let's check it out. We got Aurorus, Relicanth, Glastrier, and then the usual 3 of Kartana, Eternatus, and Lele. Not very. That's bad, especially with the matchup against Kartana and Focus Blast, and especially Geomancy. Oof, dangerous. This is proven that even unusual teams get, the axe when it comes to these matchups. Ultimately, just Stuff Ravioli's sample team. It is a sample team. Ultimately, it was just ended up being better. Nothing really too much to say there. So, unfortunate. Right there. Next up, we have Instruct versus Temp, one of the highlights of this matchup, and my god, was it anticlimactic as frick. Also, it didn't help the fact that I didn't know Instruct was the tier leader for this. I need to research on these players more. Anyway, first matchup, Temp brought a pretty interesting Trick Room team here. We got Yuxi, we got Necrozma Duskmane as the god, we got Porygon, and we got Crawdon, who are Trick Room sweepers through and through. There was an unfortunate Crawdon switch where he immediately sacked his Crawdon. Let's check it out where it is. Right there. When Chandelure was going for the Energy Ball there after tricking the Porygon, I think he was expecting a different move, but unfortunately he didn't quite predict that all that well and ended up losing what could potentially be one of his win cons. But I will give props to Instruct for having a pretty good Corviknight set, which is Substitute, Bulk Up, Roost, I believe, and then Power Trip. Very unique set, and also very stally set, because it has pressure. Yeah, if there's one mon that's broken in here, that's Corviknight. That's another mon that needs to be nerfed in some way. Game 2 was another pretty interesting matchup, I'd say. Temp brought a pretty weird. I wouldn't call it weird, actually. I'd call it, uniquely built team of Araquanid, Mimikyu, and then the rest. Araquanid did have a good idea by, infestation, liquidation, trying to basically trap something. But Klefki, he being the one to be trapped, I don't think that's the best choice. I think he should have saved Araquanid for something else. Maybe the Corviknight, maybe the Chandelure, maybe the Lugia. I don't know, but in any case, you don't want to trap the setter because the setter would usually set up hazards against you. So, that's just a pro tip. Fluffy, I wanna talk to you guys about how absolutely broken Fluffy is. This is a Crawdon doing Crab Hammer, Stab, Life Orb, Adaptability damage, and it only does 11. Are you serious? Fluffy is just so good, and paired up with Lugia, God, you got the ultimate bulk set. You got the ultimate stall. That just screams thick, basically. There was also one of So the rest of the game was pretty well played by either side. Ultimately, I think where is it? There. Okay, so it goes for the Geomancy here against the Lugia. Of course, he does the Roost, but substitute, boom, Whirlwind. That is one of the best counters to Xerneas. Like, if any the case, that one should be a staple when it comes to trying to deal with the Zern. Ultimately, Instruct ended up playing the endgame better and got the win. I would have called it a shock win otherwise, but since this is the tier leaders, I wasn't surprised at all that Instruct won. So good for him. Moves on to the next round, beating Temp. Definitely, it gives a lot more options on who could be the contender for the finals. Interesting stuff. Next up, Kither versus Wilski, 780. I mean, he forgot to save game 1, unfortunately, so I assume that would be a dominant win, like, as what Kither's opponents usually suffer from, is that they got to meet the god that is Kither. Both brought pretty interesting teams. I think I think this is a modified team, actually, over the other one. Maybe a sample, I don't know. Kither bringing a pretty unique team. Hail with Avalugg and Ninetales, and then you got the Belly Drum Sweeper, and then Shadow Shield to offset some of that. A pretty interesting team right there. Some highlights, including Shadow Shield, really making this team bulky as hell. Compare that with Avalugg, yeesh. That just screams, again, thick. A burn from Crawdon. ultimately sealed the deal from Wilski. Milotic getting the lucky burn on Groudon. Unfortunately, there's no chance in hell that Wilski was able to come back from that, even with +6 Dragon Dances. Also, funnily enough, competitive just kept acting. And because of the sticky web, competitive just kept getting activated and allowing everyone to get boosted. Imagine if everyone had special moves, or at least Kither brought special mons. That would be insane. Anyway, Kither got the win. No surprise there. He moves on to the next round. Next up, we have Mr. Bossaru defeating Diego in quite a surprise. Game 1, and we got some interesting highlights. Even at +2 special defense, Nidoking does still 86 hits damage on Xerneas. Shows the power of Sheer Force Life Orb damage. Oof, that is brutal. Well, having Regieleki explode and Lele still living, big oof moment right there in that game. And yeah, the end game saw Crawdon's actually his beast boost wasn't attack or anything. It was actually speed, and that ended up being the crucial factor in order to give hmm, I think I think it was Diego. Yeah, I think it was Diego the win in game 1. Game 2 in game 2 Diego brought a pretty odd team, I want to say. It's a weird team, especially due to the fact, okay, compare and contrast here. Game 1, Game 1, it's a team we've, with some changes, but it's a team that at least is somewhat competent against the sample. Game 2, aside from the fact that Bossaru changed his, mod of choice to Ferrothorn, well, Diego's team is weird. Like, you got Rotom, Marini, Zamazenta, Celebi, Gastrodon. Interesting ideas, but I think there are better mons that would suffice in terms of the abilities. Like, for example, if you need a regen, just grab Tangrowth or grab Reuniclus. Someone along those lines. You would still keep the damage, but having Marini there is just, nah, it just feels odd to me. Yeah. So, there were a couple of interesting points here, but I will say, though, that Diego had a Rotom it was a pretty cool idea because it was, let's see where the ability is, shall we? I got Volt Switch, Overheat, Rest, and Toxic. Interesting set, but that means there's no hazard removal mons or anything that could be a hazard removal. That proved to be his undoing, unfortunately, for Diego. There was also the crit hit on the Rotom Heat with the Cortana. And Diego actually gave the calc here. +1 to 252 plus attack choice band Leaf Blade against 252 HP, 0 defense Heat Rotom critical hit. 85 to 100% damage. So Bossaru literally got the highest possible roll in order to one-hit KO Marini, which was bad. And of course, Lele ended up sweeping with the end game with, I think, Specs or Scarf, whichever the two. I don't care because Lele always is the same. In order to take that game 2, pretty unfortunate there. Game 3, again, Diego just having a pretty weird team, and it was a shame because Diego beat me in round 1, and yet he's using these kinds of teams in round 2? Really? Hitmontop? Crobat? Lycanroc? Oh, okay. He... So, there were a couple of interesting tidbits about this matchup. Up at all. I was there. There's of course the thing that Hitmontop versus, yeah, here. I think this is this moment right here. Actually, no. Let me see. This one. Going for the high jump kick over the rapid spin. I personally think he should have gone for the spin because, even if he decides to switch out, you would still remove all the hazards that put in front of you. I know you have Crobat, and potentially that could have defog, according to, if you're playing against him. The high jump kick really wasn't the ultimate choice. It was an odd 50-50, just to say, but I personally think he should have gone for the spin, to be honest. Like, I know he got the crit there, but yeah, that just removes any possibility of having your hazard removal be struck by a Moonblast. Crobat having Heat Wave, though, again, to take out Pharaoh was pretty cool. You see? That was pretty cool. There was, of course, the Specs Mewtwo, which went ham for a bit. And in the end, it was just a Xerneas sweep. Like, we haven't seen that before. So, yeah, unfortunate end for Diego. Bosseru moves on. Next up, we have LTG defeating Go the Prince. And I have a lot to say about this one as well, according to my notes. Game 1, Psychic Fangs destroying the screens. Doesn't Zamazenta have Psychic Fangs against, a screens team like this one? Proved to be a really good idea. And I think most people should take advantage of that, especially when they know that Regieleki always does. Like Clay, Rapid Spin, Reflect the Light Screen. I mean, there was a pretty bad mistake, though, by Go the Prince by Dragon Dancing his Crawdont against his Zamazenta. Not very good. That wasn't a very good play there. And Cortana's endgame was great, though. He just ended up sweeping being the rest of Go the Prince's Mons. Survived this. I think this was Spadef invested, which proved wonders for LTG. Got the attack up, got the thing up. Leaf Blade, GG. Good job, Cortana. Yeah, very well played game by LTG there. Game 2, Go utilizing his Scizor well for a bit early, which I think he should have kept, to be honest. Like, Scizor was a really good win con, but, I mean, it was pretty effective as an offensive. We're trying to do Sword Stance, Bullet Punch, and all that, but I think he should have saved it in the end. And and of course, Xerneas had to sweep this game as well to give Go the Prince Game 2. Game 3 was much more well executed. Defensive Beast Boost is a good choice, especially against the team LTG had. It proved to be very, very effective. And in the end, it was a speeds boosted Zamazenta that ultimately got the win. Again, Beast Boost working wonders for this team. Yikes. That would be painful. So, yeah, that was the end of Go the Prince's run after defeating GF97. So, LTG moves on to the next round. Next up, we have martinvtran defeating Hale. Surprising? I didn't think so, because martinvtran's actually doing well in the Plaza, in other Plaza tours, such as the Winter Seasonal and the 1v1 thing. So it wasn't really a surprise. I think Hale's washed up. Again, Plaza veterans, you're all washed up. Next up, so the first game, Hale had a pretty offensively viable HO team. Very HO based here. You got Beast Boost, Adaptability, Dark Aura, which is pretty good. There was though one confusing play I will make, and why would Hale go for the Endeavor against Cortana? I think this would be in range in order to get close combat. Unless you don't have close combat, why would you go for Endeavor? It just seems weird. That just seems like a weird play you would make. Ultimately, having Xerneas in the back proved instrumental for Martin to just sweep the heck. Also because Dragonet has multi-scale. While good in theory, it's just again, and against, of course, 3 Mons that are weak to Xerneas. Whoopsie poopsie. Game 2, again, just didn't go well for Hale, to be honest, because Martin's team was very good again at taking apart each and every mon in this team. Like you can get the fairy Tapulele to take a card on, focus blast, moon blast. This dies in like one hit unless you're special defensive. So yeah, it was fitting that Hale used Dialga, but Beast boosted Eternatus proved to be his undoing. Sheesh, when he sent it out, and then this started to sweep, yikes. It was the end of the road for Hale, and Martin ultimately took the win. Next up, we have Pikachup losing to Elfuzon, despite them commenting that the tier was really weird, which admittedly it is. They are still able to pull off a 3-game series, which Elfuzon won. So, a couple of highlights that had happened. There were the play rough misses by Klefki, which was really unfortunate. He couldn't hand a single one. There was Prankster Haze. He's played by Pikachup, which was pretty inventive against, the Geomancy and the Swords Dance and the Dragon Dance and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, I think Lugia's stall helped Pika really well and ultimately took the win here in Game 1. Game 2, I think the Kartana speed time mattered heard, heard for a bit. Elfuzon was still able to pick up the win here, but this game was just mostly H oriented, and it ended up which how am I gonna say this? It ended up with basically who got the better endgame mons. Like, yeah, you got Cortana down, you got this dude, you got uh, you got this ultimately sweeping, blah blah blah. Explosion right here, and then the Geomancy against this thing, but yeah. Dialga ended up taking the wind out of his sails there, and boom. Okay, that was just a good end game there by Elfuzon at the end. Game 3, got a rain team. When will the rain ever stop? But credit where credit's due. Like this is a pretty damn good rain team to have in Godly Power. Elfuzon even commented that he made a great play that he didn't even realize, which was pretty funny. But in the end, Elfuzon just played well, just well and truly played well. Against Pikachup, and he moves on to the next round. Good job for you, Elfuzon. All right, next up, we got Roldsky versus Wubin. It ended up in 2, and Roldsky ultimately took the win. I have to give kudos though to Roldsky because he created a pretty stacked Trick Room team for Godly Power. It was a really, really well built team, and I have to give him props there. Woban just had this team, but Roldsky ended up playing the meta well, had pretty good prediction luck, and ultimately like the choices of Marowak and Glacier here, or Calyrex Ice, whatever, and Slowbro, and then Groudon at the end really proved his benefactor there and able to win Game 1. Game 2, both teams actually had pretty good choices. Not just Game 1, but Game 2. But Game 2 as well. They had, of course, this team, but Rolsky had a Groudon Volcarona Victini set, which is very built in Sun. On a note I will make is that Lugia proved to be a pretty immense wall against Groudon and Volcarona. Both physical and special side, both walled by Lugia. Oof. And And as soon as Victini came in, it was the biggest double-edged sword in this match because um, it had V-Create, which is usually as bad when you did it twice, but Rovsky's Victini was able to pull off the win here. Very consistently rated Victini, which enabled him to take the win. Very, very good. Next up, we have Euphanos defeating Bab01. And again, what is it with Euphanos teams and just strangely working well? Again, he built another crazy team with Comfey, Verzion, Arcanine, Zamazenta, Butterfree, and Kartana. And it delivered yet again. And there was an agility play by Zamazenta, which ended up outspeeding Sandrush Excadrill, and I thought that was amazing. And then, the end game just proved that special Verzion is holy good. Good, especially when taking out T-Tar like that. That is amazing. But yeah, that was game 1. Game 2, not really much to say because, well, it ended up just being a 6-0 sweep because Euphanos really only needed Buzzwole. The good substitute bulk up Ice Punch Drain Punch play, that was really good. But it was also pretty interesting to see that it was special defense that was the beast boosted stat rather than physical, because 4 out of the six mons are physical attackers, but yet Buzzwole was still able to beat them all to a pulp. Very, very good win by Euphanos there. Proven to be one of the most viable contenders for Tourist Plaza Classic. Pretty excited to see what other stuff Euphanos will build in the future. Next up, we got 7U992 defeating Advata in 3 pretty interesting games. I think this was a specially boosted Lando that came in because it kept tanking Tapu Lele's hits, which was pretty good, which was pretty interesting. But it was just a way too bulky team for Adv to break. Like I mentioned, the specially boosted Lando coming in along with the Milotic and all that, and then play roughing the Como-O, which was ready to sweep, but yet ultimately died. A very good team there by 7U9I. Game 2, Adv brought Pelipper, but there is no Swift Swimmer. Interesting. The Night Slash crit on the Doublade was pretty lucky, I'd say. But Pelipper ended up it is a Choice Specs Pelipper set, which ended up proving very, very instrumental by first taking out Pharaoh in one hit, and then ultimately disregarding the Chandelure and the Mewtwo in the end. Very, very nice Pelipper set there by Adv. Kudos to him for bringing it back into a 3-game series, in which 7U992 who won with this kind of team. This is a really good team. I want to steal it. There were a couple of highlights, of course, like 2 Surging Strikes couldn't even break Substitute Beware. That's the power of Fluffy for you, and it's OP as hell. I do like the idea of the Lunala set. It was a Life Orb with Roost and Ice Beam, which I found pretty... Oh no, Psychic. Hey, Moongeist Beam. Excuse me. It was a pretty interesting set. Never see HO Lunala in this kind of meta, let alone any other meta. So that was pretty interesting. It took 13 turns for Inteleon to break Corvi. Wow. And in the end, Lugia Stall ended up being the defining factor in enabling 7U992 to take the win. Next up, one of the biggest surprises in this tournament, we got Ron defeating Tranquility. How did he do it? I'ma tell you. Game 1. I really don't like the look of Axe's team. Like, what is this? What is this? Yes, you got your Corvi, you got your Lunala, Thunderous, Avalug, Seismic Toad, Avalug, like, okay, but it seems not only is it visually disappealing, but it's also like lacking in synergy and compatibility. That I just couldn't find any compatibility for this team. Like, yeah, you got your Prankster, you got your Shadow Shield, and you got your Water Absorb. That's fine and good, but I just don't like. I just didn't like, and that proved to be Axe's undoing. Like, first off, you got Ron using the Resto Chesto Rotom set, which is pretty good. But also the Dracozolt set warrants attention. Why can't I say things properly? But yeah, the Dracozolt set proved way one what actually worked pretty effective there. Like, you got Dragon Claw, Taunt, and Fire Blast. Interesting team there by Ron, but ended up taking the win. So kudos to him. Game two. Oh, excuse me. Game two was it was a better team, but again, well, it was a more unusual team, but it proved a lot better and lot more well handled for Axe because yeah, you got your Roselia, you got your Jirachi, but you got Compound Eye, and then you got your Sticky Web, Serene Grace, Steely Spirit. That's good. That's a good set right there. Yveltal, I want Yveltal to be the standout. In terms of HO Godly Gift Share Power, I think Yveltal should be the perfect god because it has Dark Aura, which, looking at this matchup, you got Crawdon, Zero Aura, Lando, all carrying knockoff. That gets boosted by Dark Aura. That is a very good. That is a very good idea there. Overall, though, this game, not too much to say. I think Ron just ultimately played better, which ended up. I feels bad for Axe. He's been a very good tournament host, but I think as a player, he's defo washed up. So Ron moves on to the next round, and yeah, we can all confidently say that Ron is a good player now. Next up, we got Mossy Sandwich defeating Sushi Yuki. Yui. Game one. I wanna make mention of this game one because my God, I actually want this team. You got your Kyogre as your god. You got Rain Dish support, Dry Skin. Make sure Rhyperior is immune to water attacks, and you got your Pressure, and you got your Lightning Rod as well to make Kyogre and Tentacruel both immune to electric type attacks. Very effective there. Also, Goodra, Sap Sipper. I love it. I love it. It's just a broken team, and I love it. And Mossy, while it didn't get the win for Mossy here, but um, because Tsushiyuki also played pretty well, I would say kudos to them as well for giving Mossy a big fight. And just the fact that Kartana and Crawdon's synergy, and the fact that Tsushiyuki was able to play well around on what to predict on either of these two mons, with Beast Boost helped in the end for Tsushiyuki and ultimately got the one up over Mossy. Mossy ultimately got the two wins back because of game two. Oh, we got Tsushiyuki. Well, with Tsushiyuki's team against the Instruct team, as I like to call it, because it's a really good team. Tsushiyuki definitely should not have stayed in with Eternatus against Corviknight because that just allows for setup. Why didn't he go? Why didn't Tsushiyuki immediately go for the flamethrower instead? So that was bad. Also because he has Flash Fire too, and I think it was already revealed thanks to this guy. But whatever. But yeah, why he shouldn't have stayed in. I think he should have. I think either this or this could take it out. But that's Mons for you. Game 2 was pretty bad for ultimately Corbin Knight's pressure stall with power trip ultimately gave Mossy game 2, which was pretty interesting. And then game 3, there was one play that genuinely irked me in this match, and had Sushiyuki not done it, I think he would have gotten them the game. Honestly, um, it's where is it? It's not this one. Not this one. Although the Emolga was pretty decent. I'm just waiting till the Chandelure comes in. It has to be around where Chandelure decided to come in. Uh, let's see. That right here, right here. Turn 31. Why did Sushiyuki stated with Dialga against the choice hoist Chandelure, who was obviously gonna do trick? That was just a really bad play, and ultimately, if he had kept that in, I think Sushiyuki would be able to take the game. Like you could trick that with the Crawdon, it would get the win. If you trick that with the Tapu Lele, it would have gotten him the win. But yeah, it was just a really weird play there. And ultimately, Corvistal again. Props to Corvistal. That mon is just insanely broken. Why? Why instruct? Why you build teams for this thing? Blech. Alright. Next up. Next matchup. We got LPH losing to Nate 5011. Why? Well, first off, we got LPH seemingly to have the lead for a bit. It was pretty interesting that LPH seemed to have the lead there. I definitely do think that he should have used his Dormanitan a lot more usefully. Like, it is the perfect win con against everything on Nate's team, and yet it wasn't just used very effectively. And in the end, Tabulele had to just sweep him up. Sad days. Uh, game, game two. Game two. The war on Dialga against Zern was pretty good. And but overall, game two just went a little bit more smoothly, albeit Nate still winning because Kartana this time was the one who swept up LPH. So it was a pretty unfortunate loss for LPH in the end, and Nate able to move on. Pretty interesting there. All right, next up, we got OMFG guy getting absolutely turned into a pancake by the real Starreal. Game one. And OMFG guy had a pretty good idea for a team, but it just wasn't well executed. Yeah, you got your Irrelevant, you got your Cortana, you got your Circuitry. Like, that was a good team. It's a pretty good team. Fortunately, you have to play against one of the favorites for this tour. So meh. But yeah, in the end, Eternatus just kind of sweeps everything. I mean, you got Sludge Wave to take out basically 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you got Cortana losing to Flamethrower. Bad times to be an OMFG guy. I think that's what he was. I think that's what he was screaming towards the end of the game. OMFG. Game two. Nothing's changed really. I will make a mention though. Well, first off, you got um, Kartana being removed to Corviknight. Okay, that's a pretty meaningless change in the long run. But there is one turn that irks me in this game. Let's see. And I even made it in my notes, so I properly know where it is now. Turn 23. Why didn't he just go for the attack there? He could have just brave birded it and immediately killed the Glastrier. What is wrong with your play there, OMFG guy? He could have had a pretty good well, this thing will probably take a hit, but it would have been a much better output for you had you killed this thing. You could have gotten it to a Game 3 series. Unfortunately, Storiel just said fuck it and let let the game play out as normal. Ultimately, in the end, Xerneas getting poisoned was the killing blow to OMFG side, so it rendered any chance for OMFG guy to sweep, and ultimately Starreal moves on. Next up, Saba versus Shadow Master, one of the highlights of this matchup. For me. Nothing really to comment on game one because it was just a very well played game from both sides, and they had pretty interesting teams again. It was a pretty interesting games, but the ending though it was a timer win. F and that's really all I'll say there. Game two, it was a mirror match. Two types of matchups right here. Um, Jirachi was doing Jirachi things against Lugia, which was pretty funny. Shadow, sacking the Buzzwole ultimately led to his undoing, and then of course the High Dragon ultimately gave in, got the sweep for him, and ultimately Saba picked up the win. And the last matchup to comment on is TX defeating Fimi Jargo in 2 games. Game one, it was a pretty evenly matched up. I think no team was pretty better than the other, and they both have some pretty interesting sets to go along with it. I did make a comment about this team being crap, but it ultimately proved wonders for TX. Cartana though was a master sweeper. Like my God, this can take out this, everything. Everything in this team just dies to Cartana. Game two, well, it was mostly HO. It was actually a pretty HO-y game because of the teams that they brought. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and Mewtwo carried solo that first half. Like it was able to take out Mungo's, all the teams that were weak to it, and then it was just a back and forth game with the remaining matchups of Tapu Koko and Xurkitree ultimately destroying Fimi's team and ultimately gave TX Exitas the win. And of course, there are all the wins via coin flip or activity. Again, I need everyone to cooperate and play their games, please. All right, so that is taken care of. Round two has been taken care of. Let's move on now to round three. The tier for round three is a pretty interesting one. 350 Cup without team preview. For those who don't know what 350 Cup mod is, it's basically if your mon is below base stat total of 350, it gets doubled. Makes it comparable to Uber territory. That's why a lot of Uber's teams have been. That's why a lot of Uber's bonds are also showing up in here. But yeah, pro tip: just bring an LC team. It'll work. It'll work. Calling by experience here. It'll just work. So let's check out the matches and see how it's gonna go down. First up, we have Instruct versus Mr. Bosaru. Both players, well, I've only seen Mr. Bosaru once, and he played okay, but I think Instruct will ultimately show him who is the real boss around here. Instruct to take this in 2, I would say. Ultimately with both players being ultimately the game will matter in the end. So I'm picking Instruct because he's generally the better player of the two. So that's a pretty interesting one there. Next up, kind of a highlight match. 7U992 versus Elfuzon. Both players are pretty evenly skilled going into this, and with the addition of 350 Cup without team preview, that could be pretty. That could be close. What am I gonna go for? I guess I could say that 7U992 had the better performances all throughout, but Elfuzon is no slouch. So who am I gonna give this to? I think I'm gonna give this to Elfuzon. I think he just played ultimately better in his matchup against Eugene Bilal with 7U992 had a pretty okay win against Dragon Master, but I think Elfuzon looks stronger in the end, so huge props to him for that. Next up, we got Skevet, who's been winning here due to coin flips against Strawverito and Eden Wu to go up against Ainscrad, who also came through round 3 with 2 coin flips. So having these two fight, I will say Boyne going to win. If the match gets played, Boyne is clearly the better player of the two. So having seen Skevet play, I don't think it holds a candle to what Ainscrad has been doing. So interesting there. Next up, we got Nate 5011 against EU. Nate has been winning by hook and by crook, just purely based on luck. So I think I'm gonna give this to EU. I think EU is the better player of the two. Just comparing these two skill-wise, EU ultimately has the bigger advantages. Also, due to the fact that it may be an OM meta, like I think EU can easily adapt to this meta in order to take the win there. Next up, probably the biggest highlight of this tournament, Ron versus Sificon. Okay, Ron has had a harder journey, that's for sure. Because it had to face off against Axe. Axe, who himself had a pretty hard opponent in Stitch. While Sificon had only played round 1, and then round 2 got coin flipped and won. Oh no, activity 1, sorry. And now these two are playing against each other now. Who am I gonna pick between Ron and Sificon? That is hard. I'm gonna go with Sificon, but only by a hair. If Ron wins, it won't be a surprise. But I hope this game gets played to 3 games, and hopefully we get to see some pretty interesting teams. And yeah, Sificon, I think, slightly edges out Ron in terms of performance, but I would not be surprised if Ron wins. In fact, if he wins here, then I might just predict Ron to win the whole thing. That's a bet. That might be a bet. I don't know. Next up, Belor versus TX. Having now seen how Belor can do and how TX can do, I'm going to go with TX on this one, since not only just because I've seen them play more, but also he looked pretty impressive against the two opponents that he already had. So Belor maybe just be a new one, but TX is very experienced across the ROA circuit, and now getting to step into TPC with all these inclusive metas. I think TX has the advantage here and has, the meta knowledge and what it takes to win. TX is going to have a long road, although, because whoever TX faces is going to be hard. It's going to be a hard play. Next up, Me Milli Me versus LTG. Me Milli Me played well in his first round match against Doc. LTG, though, played pretty well against Go the Prince last round. So this might be hard, but I'm going to go with LTG based on experience and how much LTG has improved. Well, I haven't really seen him improved, but as a true Plaza main, I have to back up my boy, okay? Go veterans! Go LTG to take this. Same opinions here with Stuffed Ravioli versus Saba. Saba has had pretty good wins over Rinse Cycle and Shadow Master. Stuffed Ravioli has been, he got the ACK win over Casual.exe and did okay against Mercupti, but I think in the end, it will matter because Saba has the win. I think Saba will win against... and it will be a pretty interesting matchup. It actually is a matchup between former Celesteelas in round 4. But we're not talking about round 4. This is round 3, and I think Saba would take this in 2. Next up, Delta 4 versus Kither. Do I really need to say anything else? Yeah, Kither easily to win this. Next up, Don Vasquez and Mamalu haven't played yet, so we're waiting on that. But I predicted Don to win here, and I think Don will also win against Dan Garcia. Don versus Dan. Don wins. Because Don is a better player. Here, Don knows these OMs like a back of his hat, even though he's an OM Mashups mod. He still knows OMs, so Don Vasquez able to take this one. Luke versus Carl Dude Guy. Two players who also won due to coin flips and is now matching up in round 3. I think Carl will win based on experience again, just because he's a former Plaza mod. Well, now former moderator. Not only that, but, when he plays, he can get pretty into it. And he's able to take out newcomers willy-nilly. So I think Carl will win here. Next up, we got Euphanus versus Donta. Not really much to talk about here as well. I mean, Donta looked... Donta actually got ACK wins over everyone else. But Euphanus was genuinely a threat. Genuinely has one of the most potentials to win TPC. So I think Euphanus is going to take this one, meeting in a rematch with Carl Dude Guy. And I can't wait to see that. Next up, Based What versus Sterile. Oh boy. I can just imagine these two scheduling and it's not going to be good. Anyway, joking aside, I think Sterile should ultimately take this. Again, because of the experience of playing Plaza tiers, he knows what's up. And aside from Base What, who we have seen, yes, we have seen, but A, he's won his matches so far due to coin flip, and B, against a pretty top tier player in Sterile. So yeah, Sterile to win this one. Next up, Martin